The morning sun cast long shadows across the ancient stone corridors of Kensington Palace as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, made her way through the private quarters. She had always been drawn to the history that surrounded her daily life, but today something felt different. The air seemed to carry whispers of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Catherine had been living in the palace for years now, yet certain rooms still held mysteries. Today she found herself in the old library wing, a section rarely used by the modern royal family. Dust motes danced in the streams of sunlight that filtered through the tall windows, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Her fingers traced along the leather-bound books that lined the mahogany shelves. Many of these volumes hadn't been touched in decades, their golden titles faded with age. As she pulled out a particularly old book about British naval history, something unexpected happened. Behind where the book had been sitting, she noticed a small gap in the wood paneling. Curiosity getting the better of her, Catherine pressed gently against the panel. To her surprise, it moved slightly. Her heart began to race as she realized this might be more than just old woodwork settling over time. She looked around the empty library, ensuring she was alone, before pressing harder against the loose panel. With a soft click, the panel swung inward, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, wrapped in yellowed silk, lay an envelope bearing a royal seal she didn't recognize. The wax was deep red, almost burgundy, and the impression showed a crown with strange symbols around it. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the envelope from its hiding place. The paper felt different from modern stationery, heavier and more textured. As she turned it over, she could see elegant handwriting in faded ink. The address read simply, "For the future Prince and Princess of Wales, when the time is right." Catherine's breath caught in her throat. How could someone from the past have known to address a message to her and William specifically? She carefully broke the old wax seal, mindful not to damage what was clearly a historical artifact. Inside was a letter written on matching heavy paper, along with what appeared to be a small brass key attached to a ribbon. The handwriting was flowing and formal, clearly from someone educated in the old ways of penmanship. The letter began, "To those who shall wear the titles we once bore, we leave this message in faith that destiny will guide it to your hands." Catherine sank into a nearby leather armchair, her mind racing. Who could have written this? When? And how did they know it would find its way to her and William? As she continued reading, the letter spoke of a tradition unknown to the modern royal family. It mentioned a secret that had been passed down through select members of the Wales line for centuries, something that had been hidden during times of political upheaval and war. The writer explained that they had been forced to conceal this knowledge, hoping that future generations would be wise enough to uncover it when the monarchy was once again stable. The letter hinted at a greater revelation, something that would change how the public viewed the role of the Prince and Princess of Wales. It spoke of a responsibility beyond public duties, beyond the ceremonies and charity work that filled their public calendar. There was mention of a sacred trust, a duty to protect something precious that belonged not just to Britain, but to the world. Catherine's mind whirled with questions. She thought about all the official royal histories she had studied, all the briefings she had received about her role and responsibilities. Never had anyone mentioned anything like this. Either this was an elaborate hoax, or there was a significant piece of royal history that had been lost to time. The key mentioned in the letter was small and ornate, with intricate engravings that matched the symbols on the seal. According to the letter, this key would unlock the next part of the mystery, but it required both her and William to be present. The writer emphasized that this secret was meant for the partnership of marriage, not for any individual acting alone. She carefully refolded the letter and placed it back in the envelope along with the key. Her heart was pounding as she considered what to do next. Should she tell William immediately? Should she research the origin of the letter first? The rational part of her mind suggested this could be some kind of historical curiosity, perhaps a creative writing exercise from a past royal family member. But something about the letter felt authentic. The weight of the paper, the age of the ink, the way it had been so carefully hidden, all of these details suggested this was no mere curiosity. As she sat in the quiet library, surrounded by centuries of royal history, Catherine couldn't shake the feeling that she had stumbled upon something genuinely significant. The afternoon was growing late, and she knew William would be returning from his official engagement soon. She made her decision. Tonight, after their children were asleep and they had privacy, she would share this discovery with her husband. Whatever this secret was, they would face it together, just as the letter writer had intended. Catherine carefully returned the envelope to its hiding place and restored the panel to its original position. As she left the library, she couldn't help but feel that her life had just taken an unexpected turn. The weight of the discovery settled on her shoulders like a royal mantle, and she wondered what changes tomorrow might bring. The palace corridors that had seemed so familiar that morning now felt charged with new possibilities. Every portrait of past royals seemed to watch her with knowing eyes, as if they too were guardians of secrets waiting to be revealed. Catherine walked toward her private quarters with measured steps, but her mind was racing ahead to the conversation she would soon have with William. Little did she know that this was only the beginning of a mystery that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their roles, their history, and their destiny as the future King and Queen of England. That evening, after George, Charlotte, and Louis had been tucked into bed and the palace had settled into its nighttime quiet, Catherine finally had her chance to speak with William. They were in their private sitting room, a cozy space decorated with family photos and personal mementos that made the grand palace feel more like home. William was reviewing some papers from his day's meetings when Catherine approached him with an unusual expression on her face. He immediately set aside his work, recognizing the look that meant his wife had something important to share. After 15 years together, he had learned to read her moods and expressions like a favorite book. Catherine began by describing her afternoon in the old library, explaining how she had discovered the hidden compartment purely by accident. As she spoke, William's eyebrows rose with interest and concern. When she produced the envelope and key, his expression shifted to one of complete fascination mixed with healthy skepticism. Together, they examined the letter more carefully than Catherine had been able to do alone. William's knowledge of royal history was extensive, and he pointed out several details that supported the letter's authenticity. The paper was clearly from an earlier era, and the writing style matched what they knew of formal correspondence from the late 1800s or early 1900s. The key was particularly intriguing. Its craftsmanship was exquisite, with tiny engravings that required a magnifying glass to see clearly. The symbols included crowns, roses, and what appeared to be architectural elements, perhaps representing specific buildings or locations. William had never seen anything quite like it in any of the royal collections he was familiar with. As they discussed the implications of the letter, both Catherine and William found themselves drawn into the mystery despite their initial caution. The letter had mentioned that the key would lead them to the next revelation, but it had been deliberately vague about where they should look. The only clue was a reference to where the roses bloom eternal and the crown touches the sky. William suggested they start their investigation in the palace rose gardens, though he acknowledged this might be too obvious an interpretation. Catherine agreed, but she also wondered if the clue might refer to one of the other royal residences. Windsor Castle had extensive gardens, and Buckingham Palace had its own rose garden as well. They decided to begin their search the next morning in their own backyard, so to speak. If the Kensington Palace gardens yielded no clues, they could expand their search to other royal properties. Both of them felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness about what they might discover. The following morning dawned bright and clear. Perfect weather for a garden exploration that wouldn't attract unwanted attention from staff or security. William and Catherine made their way to the palace's private gardens, which were beautifully maintained but rarely visited by anyone except the gardening staff. The rose garden at Kensington Palace was smaller than those at other royal residences, but it was no less beautiful. Dozens of varieties of roses bloomed in carefully planned beds, their colors ranging from deep red to pure white, with every shade of pink and yellow in between. The fragrance was intoxicating, and Catherine found herself understanding why roses had been such an important symbol for the British royal family for centuries. They walked slowly through the garden paths, examining every structure, every statue, every decorative element that might hold a clue. William pointed out that many of the garden's features were relatively modern, installed during renovations in recent decades. If their mystery dated back a century or more, they needed to look for older elements. It was Catherine who noticed the sundial. Positioned in the center of the rose garden, it was an elegant bronze piece that had clearly been there for many decades. The base was decorated with the same symbols they had seen on the key: crowns, roses, and architectural elements. Her heart began to race as she called William over to examine her discovery. The sundial's base had several small keyholes worked into its decorative pattern, so cleverly disguised that they almost looked like part of the artistic design. William and Catherine looked at each other with growing excitement as they realized they might have found what they were looking for. Catherine retrieved the key from her jacket pocket, and together they examined the keyholes more closely. There were 3 of them, each slightly different in size and shape. The key from the letter fit perfectly into the middle keyhole, and when William turned it, they heard a soft, mechanical click from somewhere within the sundial's base. Suddenly, a section of the base slid aside, revealing another hidden compartment. Inside were 2 more envelopes, each sealed with the same mysterious royal seal they had seen on the first letter. One envelope was marked for William and the other for Catherine, suggesting that the mystery writer had indeed intended for both of them to discover this secret together. They decided to return to their private quarters before opening these new letters, not wanting to risk discovery by palace staff or security cameras. Once safely inside, they each opened their respective envelopes with trembling hands. William's letter contained a detailed map of what appeared to be underground tunnels connecting various royal properties throughout London. The map showed passages linking Kensington Palace to Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, and even the Tower of London. Alongside the map was a letter explaining that these tunnels had been used for centuries to move royal family members safely during times of political unrest or external threats. Catherine's letter contained something even more surprising: a genealogical chart that showed connections between the British royal family and other European royal houses that went far beyond what was publicly known. The chart suggested that the House of Windsor had been involved in secret diplomatic efforts for decades, using family connections to prevent conflicts and maintain stability across Europe. Both letters concluded with the same message. This information was being shared because the world was entering a new era of challenges that would require the wisdom and connections of the past to navigate successfully. The writer believed that William and Catherine, as the future king and queen, needed to understand the full scope of their potential influence and responsibility. The letters also mentioned a final revelation, one that would tie together all of these discoveries and explain why this knowledge had been hidden for so long. To access this final secret, they would need to use the information they had just received to locate a meeting place that had been used by royal family members for private discussions for over 2 centuries. As William and Catherine absorbed this information, they realized that their understanding of their roles was about to change dramatically. They had always known that being royal carried responsibilities beyond what the public could see, but this suggested a level of hidden influence and secret knowledge that neither of them had imagined. The tunnels shown on William's map were not marked on any official palace blueprints that he was aware of. If they truly existed, they represented a security asset that could be invaluable in times of crisis. Catherine's genealogical information suggested diplomatic possibilities that could help address international tensions in ways that traditional diplomacy might not be able to achieve. Together, they studied the maps and charts late into the night, planning their next move. The final revelation awaited them, but reaching it would require courage, discretion, and a willingness to step into a role that previous generations of royals had played in secret for centuries. Neither William nor Catherine could have imagined that their quiet life in Kensington Palace contained such extraordinary secrets. As they prepared for bed that night, they both understood that tomorrow would bring them face to face with a responsibility that would define their reign in ways the public might never fully understand. 3 days after discovering the second set of letters, William and Catherine had carefully studied every detail of the maps and genealogical charts. They had spent hours in the palace library researching the historical references mentioned in the documents, and everything they found supported the authenticity of their discoveries. The map indicated that the entrance to the secret tunnel system was located in the basement level of Kensington Palace, behind what appeared to be a solid stone wall in a storage area rarely visited by anyone except maintenance staff. According to the instructions, the entrance would only be visible when approached at a specific time of day, when the light fell at just the right angle. Catherine felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as they made their way to the basement that morning. William carried a small flashlight and the original key, along with copies of the maps they had discovered. Both of them had told their security detail that they were conducting a private inspection of some historical features of the palace, which wasn't entirely untrue. The basement of Kensington Palace was a maze of storage rooms, utility spaces, and forgotten chambers that dated back centuries. Some areas had been modernized for current use, while others remained much as they had been when the palace was first constructed. The air was cooler down here, and their footsteps echoed off the stone walls and vaulted ceilings. Following the map carefully, they located the storage room that corresponded to the marked entrance point. At first glance, it appeared to be exactly what it was supposed to be. A room filled with covered furniture, old paintings in protective wrapping, and boxes of historical documents awaiting proper cataloging. But as the morning sun reached the right angle, streaming through a small window high on one wall, everything changed. The light revealed the faint outline of a doorway and what had appeared to be solid stone. The optical illusion was remarkable. The stones had been cut and fitted so precisely that the entrance was invisible unless the light hit it from exactly the right direction. William found the hidden mechanism mentioned in the instructions, a stone that could be pressed inward when touched in a specific sequence. The sound of ancient gears and counterweights echoed through the chamber as a section of the wall slowly swung inward, revealing a passage that had been hidden for decades. The tunnel beyond was larger than they had expected, with stone walls that showed the craftsmanship of master builders from centuries past. Electric lighting had been installed at some point, though the fixtures looked like they dated from the early 1900s. When William found the light switch, the passage illuminated to reveal a corridor that stretched into the distance, just as the map had indicated. Catherine marveled at the engineering involved in creating such a passage. The tunnel was wide enough for two people to walk side by side, with a vaulted ceiling that gave it an almost cathedral-like feeling. The walls were lined with carved symbols and crests representing different periods of royal history. As they walked deeper into the tunnel, following the route marked on their map, they passed several branch passages leading in different directions. According to the map, these led to the other royal properties mentioned in the letters. The scope of the tunnel system was far more extensive than either of them had imagined. After walking for nearly 20 minutes, they reached their destination, a circular chamber that opened up from the main tunnel like the hub of a wheel. The chamber was beautifully appointed, with comfortable chairs arranged around a circular table, bookshelves lining the walls, and historical artifacts displayed in glass cases. This was clearly the meeting place mentioned in the final letter. The room felt like a private club or library, a place where serious conversations could take place away from any possibility of being overheard or interrupted. Portrait paintings around the room showed various members of the royal family from different eras, many of whom Catherine and William recognized from their historical studies. On the central table, they found the final letter they had been promised, along with a leather-bound journal and several historical documents. The letter was longer than the previous ones, and it contained the full explanation of everything they had discovered. The writer revealed themselves to be a previous Prince of Wales, who had lived during a particularly turbulent period in European history. During times of war and political upheaval, the British royal family had maintained secret diplomatic channels with other royal houses across Europe, working behind the scenes to prevent conflicts and protect innocent lives. The tunnel system had been constructed gradually over several centuries, providing secure meeting places and escape routes during times of danger. The genealogical connections Catherine had discovered represented a network of relationships that had been used to facilitate peace negotiations, prisoner exchanges, and humanitarian efforts that never appeared in official government records. The journal contained detailed accounts of these secret diplomatic missions, including successful efforts to prevent several wars and arrange safe passage for refugees during various European conflicts. Previous princes and princesses of Wales had played crucial roles in these efforts, using their personal relationships and unofficial status to accomplish things that official government diplomats could never achieve. The letter explained that this tradition had been temporarily suspended during the two world wars, when the risks became too great and the political situation too volatile. The knowledge had been hidden away, waiting for a time when the monarchy was stable enough and the world situation calm enough for these activities to resume safely. Now, the letter continued, global challenges required the kind of informal, personal diplomacy that only royal connections could provide. Climate change, international tensions, and humanitarian crises needed solutions that went beyond traditional governmental approaches. The writer believed that William and Catherine, with their modern education and global perspective, could revive this tradition for the 21st century. The final revelation was perhaps the most surprising of all. The chamber they were sitting in was just one of several such meeting places located throughout Europe, all connected by royal families who had maintained this secret network for generations. Representatives from other royal houses had continued to meet periodically, keeping the network alive while waiting for the British royal family to rejoin their efforts. Catherine found a section of the letter addressed specifically to her, acknowledging the unique perspective she brought to the royal family as someone who had lived outside royal circles before her marriage. The writer believed that her experience in the real world, combined with William's royal training, made them ideally suited to bridge the gap between traditional royal responsibilities and modern global challenges. The journal contained contact information for representatives from other royal houses who were ready to welcome them into this secret diplomatic community. There were also detailed protocols for conducting these unofficial negotiations and guidelines for maintaining absolute secrecy about their activities. As William and Catherine absorbed this information, they realized that they were being invited to participate in something far more significant than they had ever imagined. This wasn't just about royal history or family secrets. This was about stepping into an active role in international affairs that could genuinely make a difference in the world. The letter concluded with a choice. They could simply acknowledge this history and return the documents to their hiding places, continuing their royal duties as they always had. Or they could accept the invitation to join this secret diplomatic network, taking on responsibilities that would require courage, wisdom, and absolute discretion. Sitting in that hidden chamber, surrounded by centuries of royal history, William and Catherine looked at each other and saw the same determination in each other's eyes. They had stumbled upon this secret by accident, but they both understood that some accidents are really destiny in disguise. The world needed the kind of behind-the-scenes diplomacy that only they could provide. Their public roles as Prince and Princess of Wales would continue as always, but now they would also carry the weight of secret responsibilities that could help shape the future of international relations. As they made their way back through the tunnel to Kensington Palace, they carried with them not just the knowledge of centuries-old secrets, but also the burden and privilege of continuing a tradition that could help build a more peaceful world. The message had been revealed, but their real work was just beginning. The secret that had been hidden for so long was no longer just about the past. It was about the future they would help create through their hidden diplomatic efforts. Neither the public nor the press would ever know about these activities, but the impact of their secret work would be felt around the world for generations to come.